All right. We're back for another episode of the Bad Ideas podcast with Jason Cohen. How are you?
I'm good.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on. I'm super excited to have you here because you founded WP Engine, which is like by far the best hosting experience I've ever seen. I mentioned just beforehand, we have a big client that's with you guys, and it's really amazing what you do, and kind of hard to do that well. So amazing to get you on here and get to riff with you a little bit.
I appreciate that. It is hard, and then at scale, it's very hard. Of course, everything is hard at scale.
Yeah. Well, you were telling me before that was kind of the mission, right? You had your blog and that was getting you a lot of volume. And now you're not just handling end traffic, you're handling your team and thousands of customers. So it's like multiplying on top of itself, right?
200,000 customers.
It's insane. Yeah. Did you ever have that on a whiteboard? Like, right after the blog when you were starting saying we're going to get to
No,
10,000, 100? No.
no, because I have much more realistic expectations. But it turns out the market was large and growing. I mean, it was obviously large and growing, but it turned out to be even better than expected. And our execution was also very good. And obviously, it's a mixture of a good product, good execution, good decisions, and luck, and other kinds of tailwinds. The WordPress community is amazing. We also contribute to the community, but we give and take. But anyone in the WordPress community is also taking. So lots of factors, but yeah, no idea that it would be that successful.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you guys crushed it. I think that's super in line with the theme of the show. I think that's kind of the reason why we're doing this is because I feel like a lot of the buzz, particularly from the entrepreneurial space, is around ideas. Just from the brief background to your story and how everything got started, like you really validated everything before you went for it.
Yeah.
You didn't fall in love with something. And I think there's
No,
far
I
too
did.
many people.
But I did. In fact, I had a different idea before WP Engine that I also had fallen in
Yeah.
love with. But I validated it and, well, invalidated it, I guess you could say, decided it wasn't
Yeah.
such a good idea. So it's not, I feel like usually if someone's excited about an idea, there's some kernel of excitement that's real. There's something, they see some pain or there's some innovation, there's some insight, probably. There's some grain of something. Unfortunately, that does not mean it's a company because so many other things have to be right for it to work. The idea has to be good, yes. And also there has to be enough other people who have the problem that you're solving. And also they have to know it. And also they have to have budget allocated for it. And also they need to pay the amount that'll be practical for you. And also they need to buy from you, like as opposed to someone else, which may mean you're unique or something like that, but it doesn't have to be unique, but it has to be some reason. The reason could be simple, like it's a huge market. Someone's going to buy from you. I mean, that's a reasonable answer, which is part of why a big market is good, because it creates a lot of opportunity. If the market's small, then the answer may not work. Then they have to want to stay. There's a lot of products and ideas where you pay, you get it, and then you're done. If it's a one-off product, you pay once, then that's fine. But if you're trying to build a recurring revenue business, but the value is not recurring, then everything else can go right. So those are not all of the things. Those are just some of the things, not all of them. And it's like, well, that's a lot of things that have to go right. Yeah, we're not even done listing them. Like, oh man, So hence, it could be a great idea for some definition of great, and yet not a company, not a business. And everything I just said applies whether it's a solo founder who wants to build something that makes $1 million a year in revenue, $500,000 in profit or whatever, or a big company like WP Engine. Then the numbers involved, of course, are different and the constraints are different. But you still need all those things I just said at some numbers, and it's surprising how often, well, maybe it's not surprising how often doesn't happen. To me, it's sort of like a Drake equation of startup success as opposed to where are the aliens. It's like where the start. Yeah, it's hard. And ideas are important, but they're just a piece of it. And so, of course, you fall in love with your idea. I think you kind of almost have to, or else why would you get off your butt and try to quit your job and make a company and you're not in love with your idea? So I think it's fair to be in love with your idea, maybe even require that you're in love with your idea, but you can't let that blind you to these truths. So if it's not the right idea, you got to find out as cheaply and quickly as possible, which may still be 6 months but hey, it's better if it's 2 weeks. And so that you can have another idea that you like, it might work, so you can have time for the one that's good.
And that is an absolute masterclass. But yeah, I think you just much more eloquently than I have over the last 25 episodes, kind of eclipsed the purpose of the show, which is just to show people that if you take the right steps and you do have some passion behind it, you can create an awesome business. And I think we're going to start to do that by looking at something really, really bad that neither one of us is in love with, and seeing where that takes us. So yeah, for format, we'll look at this bad idea in a second. Neither one of us has seen it. So this is all properly improv business
Good.
commentary. And then we'll talk about why it's bad. And when we run out of bad ideas, we'll, flip our hats around and see if we can make it good. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
All right. Here we go. So our bad idea for today is a deskercise app, a fitness app specifically designed for people who work at desks all day. Gamify the process of staying fit in the office with challenges like the stealth office squat or the silent desk stretch.
I thought you were going to say the silent desk fart. I mean, that seems much more.
Yeah. Yeah.
That sounds like. Are you sure this is a bad idea?
It sounds kind of like, how do you sell this? And you employ over 1,000 people. Like, if everyone starts exercising in the office, or like squatting or paying attention to something that's non-productive, like, do you take steps to prevent that? Do you encourage it? Like,
I'm trying really hard not to argue in favor of this thing. Okay, let's. I'm going to try very hard to agree with you that it's a bad idea.
Okay.
Yeah, it would be totally distracting people off of their work. People aren't in the office anymore. That's maybe the worst part of the idea, is that they're not in the office. You exercise at the office. Oh yeah, you're in the office? Now I know some people are being brought back to the office, but a lot of people aren't. So most of your market may have just evaporated. And then of the ones that are, like, maybe getting sweaty in their work clothes is the last thing that they need. So
I know.
that's
Let's go sit in
a
a
really
meeting.
bad idea.
Yeah.
I'm sure doing squats and heels is a lot more effective, but it's also harder. So I don't know if the person who made this was fully thinking about what it means to be at the office. I think, yeah, I don't know if the office has sufficient air conditioning, et cetera. They might, but depending on what's going on here, that might not be convenient. You probably need to do it throughout the day, and your schedules of meetings and other things may not line up with your workout schedule. If you're in the closet hiding and doing weird things, that may not be IT people and security people may not take kindly to whatever that is. Yeah,
You're talking
maybe we
about
don't need
earlier,
more
like, ways.
competition in our lives, because like, life is hard enough already. Everyone post COVID still, like, kind of is all weird and screwed up in the head and tried to quit. There was a great resignation, and then people realized that didn't solve anything in their emotional life. So now people are just kind of staying around anyway. And maybe the last thing we need is like, at the office, can I at least, I'm not having to be at the office, can I at least sit and, like, I don't know, look at the web? Now I have to, you never give me a moment's peace where I have to feel guilty about not working out at the freaking office. Come on. No, you need to be stressed constantly. So this is a good way to increase stress instead of relieve it. That would be another negative.
Yeah. I was thinking about what you said earlier. Like, if you could ideally test it and validate it in a couple of weeks, like, that seems like a gaping flaw.
You could evaluate it in one day.
How?
You go to an office where people are there ready with your little ideas and see if you can get people to do them.
But that's not enough, right? It's one office and you were physically involved. You can't tell if they're responding
well, it's
to
a
you or
start.
the app, right?
It's a start. If that fails, then you're definitely a failure, because if you can't in person with your checklist and people, you still can't get them to do it, then your very passive advertising and app probably will fail. So step one, under perfect conditions, can it work? If the answer is yes, you're like, good, let's try some imperfect conditions. But if the answer is you went from office to office around this whole building and couldn't get anyone to do it in person, pleading and begging with some, like, weird ideas, if that fails, then maybe you've invalidated it.
Yeah. It doesn't scale up. I was thinking, we worked on this
Validation
app.
doesn't scale. There's no scaling in validation. You're just trying to find out if it's a good idea or not. You're not scaling yet. Premature scaling is like premature optimization in code. You don't know what to scale. You don't even know what to scale. There's nothing to scale. First, you're trying to figure out, what is this? What will work? Who am I selling this to? What am I selling to them? What language should I use? What's the product? What's the price? How do I get to the, like, this is what you're trying to figure out. None of that has to scale at all. You're just trying to figure out what is the answer to these questions. Then once you have some answers, you're like, ooh, Okay, now we know what to do. We figure out what to do. How do we do that? How do we do it efficiently? How do we do more of it? Now you're talking about scaling. So the scale doesn't enter in the conversation. First, we got to find out, will anyone, because I could be that half the offices I go to, they're like, oh, dude, that sounds hilarious. Okay, yeah, like in 15 minutes, I'm going to go do this. You're like, all right, dude, I'm coming back in an hour and I'll ask you. And if that's what it's like, then the question is, okay, how do I, how can I do the interaction I just had, but I did it over online and not like in person with my clipboard? Awesome. I mean, that's validation at least of the idea and the motivation of the person. Now there's all these questions still, but oh man, that's a check on that column. Now we go to the next column, but oh boy, of course, a lot of companies fail right off the bat. Like even if you beat them over the head for 45 minutes with your sales pitch, you're like, see, that's most ideas. So you got to find out.
And so your framework for validation is just, will somebody buy or transact at some level? It's not even, you're not even
I'm
kind
just
of
saying it's
looking
step
at the
one. It's
future.
not that's not
Yeah.
that's not full validation. No, it's not. Because
Yeah.
if what they'll do it's too hard, it's not enough money, there's not enough people, then it's not validated. But it's step one is under perfect conditions, whatever that may be. You're still seeking what the perfect conditions are, by the way. But okay,
Yeah.
nevertheless, under perfect conditions, will someone buy anything? There used to be this. There's like another little test, which is will they use it for free? Many ideas. The answer is no. Okay, well, see, there's no point in arguing about price if they won't even use it for free. That means they don't really want it, or there's some side
Mm.
effects or downsides which outweigh the value,
That's a
even at
soundbite.
free.
Yeah.
Not to mention at price, right? So it's another
Mm.
example of like, okay, you're not charging them; you're just going around and asking them. And if the answer is no, well, then how much will you charge them? What? They didn't want it at all. Now, if they say
For free.
yes, then you can get into like, okay, maybe you can get people to use it for free, but maybe you never monetize it. See, if so, that's a problem again. But it's a little bit of a higher order problem. At least you got a product people want. Then the question is monetization. All right, that's better. You're down the path a little bit, but so many ideas fail at no, like I won't even take it for free. So why are we talking about price, right? So no, what
Mhm.
I'm saying is not full validation. It's just a step. Like today you could go downtown, whatever you live, and find out if there's even a little interest from anyone under any circumstances whatsoever, because shockingly the answer is often no. Even to that, you're like, damn, the answer's no to that. What the right? And so that's why it's valuable. Or you'll end up seeking it out. You give one pitch to one group and they're like, another pitch to another group and they're excited. That's interesting. Or maybe you determine lawyers love this, and I don't know, I'm just making this up. Government employees hate it or something. I don't know, right? And
Yeah.
you're like, okay, so like there's certain kinds of office workers where this works, and certain where there's not.
Mm.
Now I know where to target. Now I know where to advertise. Now I know which to hit up in person, even just to get my first 100 customers. Um, so who knows what you'll learn when you go out there and try, and like you could start learning today and learn something by the end of the day. That sounds pretty good. Not full validation, but you can make some
Yeah,
progress.
some kind of feedback. That's
Yeah,
amazing. I mean, is that what you guys did? I know you interviewed a bunch of folks, but once you had the
exactly.
first version of the product, you just gave it to people and said, "What do you think?"
So first I interviewed 50 people, 50. That took 4 months
Hmm.
because you got to find them and and beg, and then it's hard to get them to go to lunch or be on the phone.
Yeah.
So it takes forever. Um, and then I used a method which I'm happy to describe in detail to validate. And again, I invalidated one idea that I thought was great. Then with WP Engine, that idea turned out to be a good one. And then I built it, and the first version it took 36 hours. And of course, like
What?
it didn't have anything. There was no website. I couldn't take credit cards. Um, there was no portal or some place for them to be. It was literally like, well, I can manually set up everything on a server. It seems to make WordPress run fast and scalable according to these, metrics, and my own blog seems to work. I could try a test with somebody, So, it's completely minimal. And even when we launched, let's see, I guess when we launched, we had 30 paying customers, but those were all manually onboarded. And even when we launched, it was like, I don't have any real onboarding stuff, so I'll offer for free to migrate your site. Now, that's generous and helps get people over a barrier of doing a site migration. But the other truth was, I've got nothing to show. I've got no tools. I can't get them access. Like, I haven't built anything. I have to migrate you because otherwise you can't use it. Right. So it's kind of
Yeah.
both. Right. But that's okay, because if I got one sign up in a day, I was really happy. that was good. Like, that was thrilling if
Especially that
somebody cited
early.
it. Well, at that pace, I can do it. Just as we say, at first you're not doing things that scale. Later you have to make things scale. But at first it's like,
Yeah.
what does migration even mean? Should we make a tool so that it scales? Like, I don't know. Like, I'm just going to do hundreds of them, and then I'll probably have a notion of what needs to be done there,
Yeah.
right? So anyway, yeah. And it's not the only path. Obviously, there's many paths to making a company, but if you don't validate it first, the chance that it's right is low. Or even if it is a good idea, the chance that you have all those other details correct is low. So on the one hand, you don't want to sit there and validate for a year and not build anything. That's dumb, because you stop learning something at some point. Interviewing people, you stop learning. But if you don't do it at all, or you only talk to one person or something like this, well, then you have this enormous risk that's probably, because you're wrong about half the stuff, surely, and you could have known that and not wasted it 6 or 12 months or 2 years, 3 years. Indie hackers can. It's not unusual on Twitter to see an indie hacker who's 3 years in and they have like 3,000 in MRR. They still have a day job, and it's like, what's going on? You could have known this earlier.
That's awesome. And this is amazing stuff. And it makes me even more curious about your thoughts on why this deskercise app is good. And we talked about why it's bad. What do you like about it?
Well, obviously, I don't know if it's good or bad because I'm not. You got to talk to customers. That's the only people that know.
Yeah.
What I like about it is people are into exercise now. I think that's a fad, not just a fad, but I think it's just opinion. I don't know. I don't have data. If you were doing this startup, you'd want to go see if there is data. I feel like fitness and taking care of yourself is in right now.
Yeah.
And well, I'm sure
and telling people about it, right?
Yeah, I'm sure some things come and go, but I feel like maybe there's even entire generations, possibly millennials, but definitely Z, where it's more than just a fad. It's part of what the generation is. Taking care of yourself mentally and physically, I think, is kind of ingrained. People even use a lot of language, like even just the language people use has a lot to do with the languages that people use for mental health and other things. And I'm not sure that's just a fad. So if you're saying I want to bet that it's not, I feel like that's a good market bet. And then yeah, you spend. I mean, if you're at work, then you spend a lot of time there, and it's a very common problem that if you work in a desk job, first of all, you have certain kinds of things that your body has, certain kinds of back pain, certain limited mobility in certain ways, having sitting all the time, and if there's a way that's also kind of fun, maybe there could be a contest inside of one company, for example. Those often work in general for things like diets, losing weight, exercise, like steps people used a lot, right? Like there's a lot of these things which were successful in the past. Competing over steps worked. That was a good idea, and it totally worked and made a lot of money, by the way. So much so that even Apple's like, all right, fine, we'll do steps. It's like, right, because that's how good steps was as an idea. So if there's a way to gamify, of course, and make it social within companies, between companies, you could have companies fighting each other, of course, in a good way, or employees within a company. That's all like the good kind of competition. Now, what do you charge for it? Okay, charging for it's a whole nother thing. But if we're just first sticking on the idea, I think fitness is in, and fitness at work is hard, and therefore, if you can do something about it, that sounds good. If you do a little bit throughout the day, then hopefully you don't get all sweaty, etc. But you've moved around. The whole idea of you be less productive, I think you'd be more productive. I think it's pretty obvious that if you take a walk or you do some squats, you go up and down the stairwell, you get the blood flowing, you get the oxygen in the brain, and you do better. You do better. You're less sleepy. You're kind of more alert. But I think probably it increases productivity would be my guess. And if you believe in things like Pomodoro, where you work for 25 minutes and take a 25-minute break, or an hour and take 5 minutes, any of these sorts of ideas, okay, well, in the 5-minute break, you should like go up the stairs or do it, blah, 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 blah. And so if this thing can help me make that habit, sort of force me to do it, then probably my focus is better at my work and I'm healthier. Like, I don't know. It seems like it's a win for everyone, including the company. And for that reason, if I'm thinking about monetization, I could think about an individual. It's possible, though, that I want to sell it to the HR department. because there's a lot of wellness programs that companies do, and they have a budget for wellness. Now, right now, budgets are tough everywhere at companies for everything. Fair enough. But if we take the sort of current economy out of it for a second and ask, but in general, do companies invest in wellness programs? The answer is yes. It's not easy to get in there, but once you do get in there, it's hard for them to kick you out because it becomes a perk. It's very hard to take away a perk because people are just used to it. Like, oh, why did we not have the thing anymore? We like that. It's like it's a difficult sort of emotional, personal thing to remove a perk, and so you actually have this nice retention for that reason. So hard to get in, hard to get them to agree, but probably good retention if you're in. And it might grow automatically as the company grows if it's number of seats or something like this. So it might be like this high NRR, because it's automatic upgrades for seats and high retention product. So hard to sell, but maybe great NRR on the other side of that barrier. So you get rewarded for the difficult sale by good unit economics. That feels pretty good. Now, overall, like, would I want to start this business? This seems too hard, but so like, no, like I would want something that seems a little, but is it the stupidest idea I've ever heard? No, it sounds hard. It sounds, like, I don't know, but there's a path that's not crazy. There's a plausible path, I believe.
Yeah. Well, look, I love the vision. I think, I mean, that's been the most fun part of this podcast so far for me, just hearing like where your mind goes with things. It's so positive and so fast. My knee jerk reaction. So I like to start the day at the gym. And there's clear seasonality, like beginning of every year, everybody's at the gym. And by March, it's crickets again. And it's basically like that until, end of December. So even people who drag themselves at 5 a.m. to the gym to start the year after telling everyone that this is the year still can't get themselves to do it, and they're paying for it. My reaction was just like, how is technology going to get people to do something that they won't do on their own already? And that's what I wanted to ask you, because with your business, of course, like there are already WordPress websites everywhere. You just found a way better way to support them and help them scale. I think helping sell something that aids energy that's already there is a much faster way to growing something impactful. And I feel like
yes, and lower risk.
Yeah, lower risk. This one, like, you're trying to get people to do something new that they're already struggling to do, and that's why it's kind of like a, at least from my limited vantage point, has a big black eye on it coming out of the gate. What are your thoughts?
Maybe you're targeting people who already work out and they like the idea of being able to continue to do miniature versions of that throughout the day to kind of keep the juices flowing. So I don't know. You might be right, and it might. And on the other hand, there are a lot of people already into fitness, and so that is feeding into an existing trend. Also, the steps, I do feel like it brought people in. The steps thing, I know I keep harping on that, but hey, you should see if there's examples in the past where this has actually worked in some form or another. You should go, wait a minute, why did that? What was so good about it? How did it work? Because like maybe we need some of those pieces and parts in here because there's something about that actually worked. Well, with the steps, I do know there are people, because I remember them at WP Engine where they were not working out and they did not have a history of working out. But okay, these folks got together, they made a little, all right, there's 8 of us and we're going to, I don't know, I'll put $20 in, or it was just for fun or whatever it was. And they did this like friendly competition. So I've seen people specifically at work, like physically at work, competing on a thing that has to do with fitness who otherwise weren't working out. So that leads me to believe it's possible. Again, is it likely? Is it easy? Oh, those are different. I honestly don't know, because this is, of course, a market I don't understand. And so the answer is I have no idea. You'd have to go see. Mm-hmm. But is it even possible? Like the laws of physics permit it? Yes, because I can point to an example with the Fitbit where in fact it happened. So it's like, okay, you probably need a great story and a really easy thing and something people really like and maybe some luck and lightning in a bottle. You probably need some stuff. But it's happened before, so of course it can happen. It can happen again. It's not a bad place to begin.
Yeah, I'm wondering. I'm going to throw out one of my own bad ideas, but this is kind of an iteration of what we're already discussing. You mentioned like Apple piling on to the steps because it worked so well elsewhere. I wonder if part of that is because you're already taking steps. Suddenly you're counting them, and then you're making it a game, so it's very low effort to start participating. Could this be made effective to start, counting your stairs as squats, like transforming or translating your physical activity throughout the work day into like exercise reps and making it a competition in a similar way?
Well, that's what I assumed it was. That's what I assumed it was. It was like, you're going to do exercise things, but we're going to find fun ways to do it that work at offices. Like, that's what I assume the product is. Why did the steps work? Again, I'm not an expert in that area, so I'm not qualified to know why. I don't even understand consumer behavior in general. I'm a B2B person. I understand like there's business pain and there's a budget and there's a reason and what kinds of things need to be in place for them to do it. That's what I understand. I don't understand why anyone does anything. People are a complete mystery to me, but I know that. I don't pretend to know. If I had to guess, I would guess that it's just so accessible and easy for everyone to have exactly the same metric. You buy the wristwatch or the Fitbit because that's what it was, right? That's where this kind of came from. You buy the Fitbit and everybody can participate. The end. And everywhere in the world, in time zones, stepping is stepping, and it just does it for me. It counts it. I don't know. You could even get one of those weird little step counters that the mechanical ones, and like it's a step counter. Like it's too easy. And that universality of it, and yet this notion of if you take 10,000 of these in any form, you're moving your ass around a bit, and that's probably good. And that's true. Like that's directionally accurate. Like it's right. If you walk for 3 hours a day, more or less, every day, that's a lot. I mean, even if you work out, that kind of movement is good. So it just stands to reason that it would be fine. And again, obviously some people work out a lot already and this won't change a lot, but for lots of people, especially in America, they don't walk that much or they don't move that much at all. And so this represents a dramatic change in how much they move in any fashion. Therefore, it'll probably have some effect. And
it gives them credit for something they're already doing. Right?
And it's a metric. It's also a metric that's a fine granularity. I had 3,862 steps today. I had, like it's not just like, well, there's 3 levels, low, medium, and high. We're both medium. Like, so you get this built-in fine-grained thing. That probably helps in some fashion. You can measure that differently. You can, it's easier to see like who's ahead by how much type of thing. You also get that thing throughout the day. Okay, I'm only here. Now I can get to here, like it's this constant feedback mechanism. That's probably good. Like I'm guessing that constant feedback is like a useful thing, I would guess. But again, I don't know. It could be there were 10 other things like this also with all the characteristics I just said, and they failed. It could be. I don't know. And if in that case, everything I said is like maybe, but it was luck. So I don't know.
Yeah, but I mean, particularly in your case, like it can't be that accredited to luck because you've done it so consistently over such a long Fitbit specifically. Time.
Like why steps? No, but like specifically why steps? Like I don't know. Like some of it might have been lightning in a bottle, and some of it might be just a brilliant execution of things like what I just said. And I honestly just don't know.
Yeah, it's totally wild how it took over. All right, so our final verdict on deskercise. Generally a bad idea, meso bad idea, medium bad idea, okay.
I think it's a good enough idea that it should be tested.
Okay. So
I think if you declare it's a good idea without testing it, then you'll fail because you're not curious and you're not trying to get the right answers. But if you say, all right, there's some pros and cons here, let's go see what real people think and what they will do. I would say, yeah, go see. Why not? It's possible. Right. I can see it.
Perfect. Do you, to close, a lot of people are going to write to you just because of the way you think. I'm sure that happens already. But do you do any like public speaking where you kind of, coach groups of people how to think about their businesses, get things off the ground, anything like that?
Well, I write a lot. So I've been writing for 17 years, and that's where the idea of WP Engine came from, is because my blog was getting lots of traffic, and so it would crash when it got on link sharing sites like a Dig, which obviously doesn't exist anymore, and Hacker News, which does still exist. And so I needed WordPress hosting that didn't crash under such conditions. So I've been writing a long time, and so I have a lot of stuff there covering topics exactly like this. Some of the stuff around like what's a good market, or I mentioned that process for interviewing customers. Like, how do you actually do that? I have a whole thing on that, the details exactly how I did that. Step by step, like exactly how I do that. So those are examples that I have there to help. Um, I don't do much public speaking, but it's really fun when people are really doing something. Not just messing around, but when they're really doing things and have challenges. I find it a lot of fun to talk about that. And of course, the problem is, as an outside person who doesn't know them personally, doesn't know their goals, doesn't know their business, probably doesn't know their market, unless it's right in line with that in a market I happen to know about, then advice is worth very little because it's so contextual, right, of all those things. And so on the one hand, it's fun to opine, and on so of course I can. On the other hand, it's really hard, I think, on the other side to know, is this good advice without all that context, and like, I don't know. So it is fun, but I think it has to be a grain of salt. And that's probably true of most advice in general, or most crap you read on the internet. Is some of that is good for you, some of that's right for you, some of that is like crap you really need to hear. It is some of it has to be there, because everything that's ever been said is out there, so some of that must be right for you. So I think that's one of the tricks of someone looking for advice, is to go, but what context do I have? What are my goals? Am I bootstrapping versus raising money? Am I trying to have this outcome or that outcome? Am I this kind of person or that kind of person? And this person giving advice, who are they really giving advice to? And the question is, are they giving advice to someone like me in those kinds of traits, and others traits too? But like, are they giving it to someone like me? And if they are, and they're experienced and wise, well, then you still don't have to do it. But like, maybe you want to like invest some time in looking at it and thinking about it. But if it's not, it still could be right for you by accident. Still could be, but you're going to have to be much more critical. So usually people are giving advice to themselves whenever they give advice. And so that's one way to try to figure out, is this right for me? You can be like, are those types of traits, attributes, etc., like, do I feel like I match that person? And the more the answer is yes, it's like, well, then maybe this helps me become a better version of me, which is what you really want. You're not looking for advice to change who you are, but surely there's better ways, smarter ways of being who you are, doing what but better. Obviously there is, because you yourself will be you and better in 10 years. So those ways exist. Now, if you could suss out, who's telling you things where you feel like, oh, I feel like I'm learning. I'm excited about that, because yes, it's different what I'm doing now, or it's a good challenge to me, but I feel like it's right. I feel like you're challenging me, but you're kind of right too. You're telling me I'm wrong, but like, oh, I think you are correct to do that. I think I'm hearing the truth, or I'm inspired, but it's because, dude, like, that's how I always felt. But I thought maybe I couldn't this, but you're telling me I can. Okay. Because that's what I was I want to do something like that. Now you're giving me a path. Okay. When it feels like that, it feels like it's you, but maybe accelerated or better. Now we're cooking. It's still your gut feel on this. Who knows? Who knows? But that's good. So I think that trying to be intentional with that lens as you're looking at the stuff, that helps you go, okay, how do I suss out? How do I filter this shit on the internet? Because there's so much different stuff. I mean, anytime someone says you should do X, there's someone else that says, well, you should do the opposite of X. And they both have examples of successful companies doing it and unsuccessful companies doing the other one, right? And they're all correct. That is correct, because these rules. These are not laws of physics over here. They're all correct. So you're like, well, what do I do with that crap? This is what I think you do. Try to match it to your thing, and just do your best there. And try to be open to being wrong, but again, in some way that feels correct to you, in some more fundamental way, right? Like, it's, oh, your behavior, your action here is wrong. Like, oh, I should be getting sales or validating things instead of writing code. That's probably good advice. You're not changing who I am. You're just telling me you're not working on your business. You're working on your project. And you're like, oh yeah, I forgot. So like, that kind of stuff is maybe better kind of advice. But like, should you build a following on Twitter or not? That's the latest thing that was chatting about just today. And it's like, obviously the answer is, both ways can work, like, you have to suss out those details and think like, which of this feels right to me. But at a deep truth level where you're being open and vulnerable to being incorrect about some fact or some action, right?
Yeah. Well, that we have so many sound bites from you here that are going to get tons and tons of hits. Folks are going to look for a little PCU. So, you think the blog is the best place to go, or newsletter you run?
Yeah,
Books
yeah.
coming
So
out?
asmartbear.com is the blog, and there's a subscribe button, and just for like an article every week or two.
Mhm.
And then on Twitter or Threads or LinkedIn on those places, and I'm yap there much more often because the long form articles that I write there, I take so long to do it. I publish it infrequently, but I try to have them each one be as good as I can. I go
Mhm.
for what I feel is quality, or my best quality, let's just say, as good as I can do. Let's put it that way, because who among us are satisfied with the quality of things we produce, right? But it's as good as I can do, and I try to take a long time and try to say something for real. Whereas Twitter, it can be a lot more zing zang.
Fire it. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
any of those
Awesome.
places are good.
Awesome. We'll promote all of those. I think this has been unbelievable. Thank you so much for riffing here and making some time on your busy day to talk about something, kind of bad-ish. But there's, I mean, so much wisdom here. Really, really grateful for it.
Thank you, and I love this format. I love the idea of like it's bad, and then like, or is it, or what? Like, what do you do with it? That's such a cool. It's such a cool way to attack a problem, get ideas out of people, you trigger things, be a foil for stuff. This is such a neat way to do it. I really like it. It seems unique. I haven't heard of it anyway, so it's unique enough. I like it.
Well, this is awesome. I'm so, so grateful to have you be a part of it. Thank you so much. All right. Thank you.
Sweet.